Hello, this is Sarah, painting creator, and I'm just doing a video for those of you who were unable to join us on our Zoom paint together. So our painting was based upon this photograph, beautiful tropical island feel with a beautiful turquoise sea, a bit of a wave coming in, a bit of a distant headland and some further trees, and then a bit of greenery around these trees and some beautiful palm trees on a beautiful day. So let's grab our watercolours, give them a spritz whilst we're preparing. So I'm using my Winsor & Newton watercolours for this. So really good spritz. I'm settling. And then this is the pencil drawing that you'll need, not as dark as this because it's too dark. I will be rubbing it out a little bit in the future, but it's really straightforward. So this is the beachfront. The horizon of the sea needs to be flat. The horizon of the land is just in front, so it feels like it's in front of that sort of distant sea. Couple of palm lit trees. You can put as many or as few as you want there. And this is obviously the beach area. So a really straightforward paint. So just press pause whilst you manage to paint that. I'm going to press pause and then I'm going to rub out the depth of the drawing. Okay, so I hope you've managed to pause and do that little outside line sketch. I've also put on a little bit of masking fluid. I've used this Sennelier with an applicator. It's nice and fine, but you could just use some wax. I know some people have tried the wax medium and got good results with it as well. You could just use a wax crayon, anything to just keep that white. I've got a little piece of candle wax. It's just a chunk that I've broken off a larger candle. I'll just take a chunk off the side, and I'm going to just put a little bit of wax along this left hand side of these tree trunks whilst I remember. And I've put my sun on the masking tape to remind me that the sun's coming from left to right on this picture, because that's where the shadows then fall onto the ground. So this is still drying, but I can work with it, I can work around it. So I'm going to start with my sky. So I'm just going to spritz a little bit of water into the top of the paper. I don't want to really go below this line. I'm just going to put a small piece of masking tape along there. So I'll just cut a piece. Where's my flat side? A little bit further over. It's quite important that you get the flatness of this C right. Get a good rub in. Grab my big mop brush, give it a bit of a wash, and just wet the paper with the spritz that's on there and the water that's in my brush. I can go over those tree trunks because the brown will cover it, and I can go right up to that horizon line. I can go a little bit over the edge of those hills, distant hills, because again we can cover that. So I'm going to drop in some cerulean blue and just leave some gaps for clouds. Just letting it do its thing on the paper. You can have as little or as many clouds as you wish. Remember, if you're in a climate where it's drying quicker, just spritz the paper as you go, and remember that the top of the sky is always slightly darker. So I'm just painting around these trees a little bit. They're going to be under palm leaves, so there's no point putting a cloud there. Just going to lift off a little bit of colour there. So just drop in a little bit more blue around this area. Maybe a touch more. And try and let the soften the edges. The damp brush, you have to work quite quickly because otherwise you end up with hard lines. Just going to give this a little spritz just to keep it damp, and then I'm going to mix a light grey. Actually, I might just drop in a little bit of ultramarine blue just in this top area, just to enhance the sort of brightness of the sky a little bit. As always, whilst it's damp, you can work with it. Once it starts to settle, you must leave well alone. There we go. So that'll mix in on the paper. I'm just going to pick up this bead of water because I don't want it to bleed under that. So I'm going to mix up a little bit of a grey colour. So a tiny bit of cerulean blue, some cadmium red light, which will grey it down, but still keep it a nice warm colour. If you haven't got red light, you could add a little bit of burnt sienna and a touch of cadmium yellow will just make it more grey. There we go. So quite a lot of water in the mix, so it's nice and pale. Take the excess off on my paper towel, and I'm just adding some little base textures, I suppose, into the clouds. So while it's damp, you can add in. So into that mix, I'm just going to add a little bit of alizarin crimson to warm it up. Touch more cerulean blue, make it more of a purple colour, purpley pink. There we go. Take the excess off on a paper towel and just add another set of colours into your clouds. It's important that you're working damp into damp so that they actually all spread and get that sort of sense of a bit of a nice day. If you get a harsh line, just dry your brush, wet your brush, give it a bit of a dry, and then just tickle just to lift out some parts. And that's it. That's the sky done. So I'm just going to take that off. Gently peeling away. If it starts ripping, you can just lift it with a hairdryer. And that's it. We are done. So I'm just going to now wait for this to dry. And then I can work into the sea. So it's time to put the kettle on. It's better if you can let this dry as naturally as you possibly can for as long as you can, because that just lets the water and the paint mix together on the paper. So I'm going to go and put I'm going to ask hubby to put the kettle on. I'll be back with you. Okay, so we're back. This is dry now. It's not totally dry here, but it's fairly dry, fairly flat. So I know that it's dry enough. I'm using this watercolour paper, my usual A4 size, taped to a board. Okay, so I've got this really nice turquoise sea to do. So it's darker blue, more ultramarine at the back here, and then lighter turquoisey colour back there. So I'll start off by wetting the sea area with just clean water. I'm going to mix a turquoisey colour using my phthalo blue. I'm just going to add a touch of green into there, a bit of viridian green or sap green, just to really bring it into that sort of turquoise hue, a bit more blue. So you're looking for the light wash underneath, and we can darken it later on. So this is working wet into wet. And I'm going to be really careful about keeping that horizon line. Just in case. I'm just going to bring my brush stroke forward a little bit here. Just so that those white lines, it doesn't look as artificial. So I'm going to add some phthalo blue straight into the mix, and I'm just going to drop that straight in. Bright jeweled colour. Adding a little bit of ultramarine now into that mix, just for that more of a distant feel. I'm just going to add a little bit of indigo for a darker blue beneath the waves, just to build the shadow of the wave up. Brush, I'm just going to mix that in, just using clean water. A bit more indigo into that mix. I'm just going to drop in a darker horizon line. Try my best to stay within there. Just tap, tap, tap in. That's loading the wash. A little bit under here. So that's just indigo straight off my spritzed palette. And I'm just going to turn the painting now and let it just drip down the direction of the water until it settles and you're not seeing any more runs. And when it builds up against the paper, you can just run a damp tissue along the edge, pick up, sorry, a dry tissue, just to pick it up. And that stops that downward run, and we get a beautiful, so it's now flat. I'm just going to check we're on. So we get a beautiful sort of gradient within it, and it's not far off that sea colour. So we're going to let that dry and settle into the page a little bit. So I'm still using my large mop brush, and I'm prepping to do these headlands. So I'm going to use a cerulean blue base again, and some red light or some burnt sienna. for some distant grey browny headland. So I'm just going to put that sort of distant blue in for the headland, working around the tree trunks. And if you need to, you can swap to a smaller brush. Okay, so that's the distant hill. And blue always pushes things more into the distance. I'm going to add some more cadmium yellow into this mix. A bit more blue, a bit more cerulean blue, and I've made like a very bluey green colour, quite watery. I'm just going to start building up this distant sort of headland area. Just working the top at the moment and the sides, because when you're painting you want the sides of the painting to be less obvious than the tops, than the centre part. And I do want this to have a little bit of brightness in there, so I'm just going to drop a little bit of sap green into that mix. Still keeping it very distant, very sort of here but not here. So we don't want this to take over from the things in the foreground. Just painting around that tree trunk. Just working wet in damp. Just add a little touch more sap green and a little bit more cerulean blue straight from the palette. So keeping those greens quite muted. I'm just going to turn that down with some cadmium yellow. Just add a little bit of this green as well. There we go. Bit of a different base green. I feel like a bit more sap green in there. I quite liked that colour. A bit of ultramarine to darken the base. And this sort of mixtures of greens, always put a mixture on. Keeps the interest. Don't worry about showing some of the white of the paper. Could be some little houses or something there. There we go. Just trying to nice headland. It's just gone into the sea a little bit here, so I'm just lifting it up. And I'm just going to dab it with a paper towel. Okay, so we're doing all right. So this is fairly dry now, so I can work with the sand. So again, I'm using some clean water to wet the beach area. Just going to go over the front of that water as well. So cleanish water to wet the beach area, over the front of that water there, and in between those trees. And for the sand, I'm going to be doing a mixture of raw umber and yellow ochre. So here's the raw umber. I'm just dropping some of that colour into the front of that wave, under that wave, as if you could see the beach sand. And just drop in some yellow ochre as well, lots of water. In between the palm trees, a little bit more raw umber and yellow ochre. So raw umber and yellow ochre mixed together. Tapping that sand colour into the water, so it links the two. So a little bit of burnt sienna. Looks like I might have to re-spritz my my paints. They seem to have dried out a little bit. A bit of burnt sienna with a touch of ultramarine. It's a really nice sort of dark for the beach, and just drop in a little bit of detail in the foreground so that it doesn't look too clinical. Cover your sea and your land. Load your brush up and give it a good splattering. Because it's wetting wet, it'll go back into the and I'm also going to do that with some quite thick yellow ochre straight from the palette for some brighter tones in that foreground. And the same again with the raw umber. And because you're going wet in wet, it'll dissipate by itself. So there we are. That'll be a nice beach when it settles. So I'm just going to clean my palette. It's just a damp tissue. Giving it a rub. Yeah, hopefully you'll see that this will fade. It'll go into the paper and just create a nice gentle textured beach feel. If it was too smooth, it'd just look really artificial. So I am swapping onto my small mop brush, and I'm going to mix up a tree trunk colour. So with that, I'm going to be using any sort of mid-tone brown, so I'm going to be using burnt umber. And I'm just going to paint up the tree. Now, if your beach is too wet, or you might have to just wait a little bit to see how things are going. So at the top of each tree, look at the, see there's like a little lump of old leaves. Ooh. That tree trunk's only got a little larger, never mind. So into that I'm just going to drop a little bit of ultramarine into that mix to make a dark brown. And remember, my sun's coming from this side, so under this side I want some shadow. So that's that first one done. Same again, burnt umber. And I'm going to just add a little tiny bit of burnt sienna into here as well, just to brighten it up, because this one is actually the tree that's in the foreground for me. So I just want it a tiny bit brighter, but nothing that says it doesn't belong. And then that sort of brush bit of the palm leaves on the top. Ultramarine in the mix. Oh, that was a lot of ultramarine. So, burnt umber, a little bit of burnt sienna, and a little bit of ultramarine in the mix. There we go, that's better. And then I'm going to just put on this dark, and I'm starting to put on some of those sort of cross pieces that are in on palm trees as well. Okay, so some burnt umber, a little more watery than this one. Sort of top bit. And the dark. Less information on this one. It's not as important as these. Let's just drop a bit more dark into this one. So the dark's just the brown colour and ultramarine. That's my hubby, bless you. There we go. So we've got the basis of our painting. I'm going to just let that dry a little bit whilst we mix up several greens. Now in the painting, I've just seen I've got a splash. There we go. In the painting, these are actually quite yellowy green, so I'm going to go for a yellow and sap green sort of mix for a bit of a vibrant green. Might need a little bit more mixing of that. So that one's actually New Gamboge yellow and sap green. So I'm going to go for some cadmium yellow. So that's the bright green. So this one's cadmium yellow and a little bit of sap green, and you'll see it's a different green. So I've got two different bright greens, one that's sort of goldy colour and the other that's just like a light greeny colour. So sap green, and you could use whatever. You can use hooker's green, viridian green, whatever green suits you. And a touch of ultramarine will make a darker green. A darker green. Sap green and some indigo. Ooh, that's a lot of indigo. Let's just take a little bit of that out. Add a bit more sap green. Make a darker green still. And I'm just going to do, so that was some of the dark green. I'm just going to add some burnt sienna into there to make a sort of a greeny browny colour for a little bit of variety. And we might need an even darker green yet, but we will see. So for this one, I am picking up my number 4 round brush back onto the slope because that's easier for me to paint with. Just move it and check that we're on here. Okay, so as always, we're going to paint light to dark, and we're going to go this one first, then this one, and then this one, because this one is the one in the foreground, and that's the sort of mid-ground, and that's the sort of one that's at the back. So I'm going to start with this light green, load my brush. So always wet your brush first and then load your brush, take the excess off, and I'm just going to paint sort of a, oh, I've gone on the wrong one. Never mind. I can do that later. Sort of a big spider shape. So I know roughly where these leaves are going for the first level of leaves. We are going to do at least 2 layers of leaves, so don't worry. But having those as the base is really useful. So looking back at the picture, bright coming off here, hitting some of here. So I'm going to go here first and just really nice and loosely putting on the first layers of palms. So same colour, going for some loose. I was still on this light green. If you're struggling with the brush, just use a rigger brush. That will work just as nicely. So I'm going to start picking up some of this brighter green. I'm just going to drop some of that into there, and that will bring it forward. I'm going to bring this one forward, brighter green over the top. So I'm working light to dark, bright green. We'll bring the leaf more forward. And the more saturated colours will bring the leaves more forward as well. So into here, I'm just dropping a little bit of darker green underneath. Not so bothered about this one as much, but these need some information. And just nicely working your way around, just building up the leaves and the texture as you go. Using the brush, and remember it's just the first layer. We're going to come back in with another layer. But already you can see that this one's in front of that one. We've got lighter. Remember, if you want less pigment in, you just need to put a little bit more water in your mix. I'm keeping these on this distant palm tree more mushed together, and I'm going to put more definition on these that are nearer the front. So that's nearly the first mix of palm leaves. And they're doing okay. So I'm just going to let that dry for a little bit. This is nearly dry. I can nearly lift that masking fluid off, so I'm going to just rub at that with the masking fluid off. See what we've got. If you just use wax, you'll have a nice waxy feel. Just whilst my palm leaves are drying, I'm going to just mix a little light grey, a cerulean blue, red light, and a little bit of cadmium yellow to make a light bluey grey. Might just drop a little bit of alizarin crimson in there. Oh, that's a lot of alizarin crimson. Let's just move a bit over here. Grey purple colour. Plenty of water. Wanted a warm grey colour. Touch it on my paper towel. I'm just going to put some shadow into some of these waves. Just knock back the brightness of these on the distance and just drop some shadow into those. I'm just going to run shadow under the edge of that one. And on the edge of some of this water. It's very subtle, but it will help. There we go. Just going to drop a little bit of this and that blue mix into here. There we go. Okay, so these have dried during that time. So it means I can go in with a little bit of a thicker mix onto here. So thicker and darker, just less water. Always dab it onto a paper towel if you're not sure. just basically building this up, so I'm going to add a little bit more ultramarine into this mix to make it a bit darker. And I'm darkening this side, particularly of this bigger add a bit of the burnt sienna mix as if it's got a little bit of a shadow on it. And one forward here. Add some of that brighter green mix into this one. And you can basically do as little or as much as you want. But pick one of the trees to be more dominant. Mixing a darker green now, viridian green and some ultramarine. Much thicker. Building up a little bit of coverage. Just using some of these light greens that are okay, so I'm going to call that a day, but you've probably got more time than I have and can spend a bit more time getting things as you like it. I just put one down here to fill that gap. Yeah, and you can always do like broken ones. They don't have to be perfect. Nice way of just building it up. a little bit of darker tone underneath here. Yeah, okay, so I'm going to start faffing and so we're going back to my little number 4 round, and we're going to mix a shadow colour. Now the shadow colour on here is more like a grey, but I didn't think it really sort of suited the brightness of the day, so I'm going to mix a brighter shadow colour, alizarin crimson, and some ultramarine blue for a sort of a pinky, bluey, purpley coloured shadow colour. And then, oh, I haven't put the green around the trees, never mind. You can do if you want, but I'm not going to do that on this one. I will, because that's what we're going to do on the... So the green for the tree, we're just going to use the same greens, wet them all down because they've all dried up. Okay, so we're going to go for some distant greens around the base of the tree. And then we're going to add some bright yellow. We need a bit of a thicker mix. So I'm just going to use Viridian green. A bit of a thicker mix. A little bit of foliage. I'm just going to mix a bit of a brighter green as well into that. And just add it on top. We don't want this to pop too much because we don't want it to challenge this. I'm just going to add some of this brighter green into this foreground. A bit of painting too. Okay, so we're back with small mop brush and the shadow colour. Oh, that's gone grey because I've just gone straight in with green. Let's remix that one. So a little bit of alizarin crimson and some ultramarine blue. And I'll drop a little bit of yellow in there just to knock it back a little bit. It's very vibrant. There we go. So it's like a bluey grey colour. And we're going for this sort of palm leafy shadow. Nice and watery. Connect the shadows. a little bit around this bush. Just drop a bit of shadow colour into there just to bring it together. And then we're going to just drop some of this shadow colour up the trees and into the palm leaves at the bases. So just up the shadow side of the tree. And into the base of these leaves. And then I'm just going to run a little bit along the edge of this sea as well, under some of that white, and shadow under the sea, under the white part. There we go, just build that dark under some of that white. There we go, and I think that's about it. So we're going to call that a day. I hope you've enjoyed that little bit of a painting together, and don't forget, once it's dry, do sign your name, give it a date as well. I use the month, because it's really good to look back and see how things have been progressing. So happy painting, folks, and hope you've enjoyed that little tutorial.